The Indian government has issued a legal notice to stop the auction of ancient gem relics linked to the remains of the Buddha, calling the sale unethical and demanding the artefacts be returned to India. The jewels, which are set to be auctioned by Sotheby's in Hong Kong on Wednesday, are expected to fetch around $20 million. Professor Ashley Thompson is chair of Southeast Asian art history at SOAS University of London, and she joins me now. Good to have you with us this evening there. Can you first tell us more about the significance of these jewels and how they were found and ended up in the hands of the descendants of English estate manager William Claxton Pepe?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for having me, Gorish. So these relics were dug up from a stupa, a Buddhist funerary monument at the very end of the 19th century on the grounds of a British colonial estate and on the orders of the estate owner, Pepe, who you just named. This is a time when the different sites of the Buddha's life story were garnering attention of British colonial administrators and the burgeoning fields of archaeology and Buddhology. And in digging into the stupa, the estate workers found a vaulted chamber that contained a large sandstone coffer, which itself contained 5 reliquaries. 4 were sculpted in stone and 1 were sculpted in crystal. One of the reliquaries had an inscription on it, still has an inscription on it, which dates the interment to just a few hundred years after the Buddha's death. And it identifies the people making the donation, making the interment, as the members of the Sakya clan, that is, descendants of the Buddha himself. And it also identifies the relics as being the relics of the Buddha himself.
Yeah.
So sorry, yes, go on.
Please go ahead.
So under colonial law at the time, the relics were transferred and the reliquaries were transferred to the colonial government. The colonial government then proceeded to, and along with the estate owner, proceeded to separate out the 2 kinds of relics that were found inside. There were bones and ash, and there were what they call gem relics. There were small gems, and they were all mixed together. But they separated them out, and a Thai royal monastic who was traveling in the region at the time successfully petitioned the British Raj to send the bones and ash to then Thai King Chulalongkorn in Bangkok, where he received these as a diplomatic gift. He interred them in Bangkok, and he subsequently distributed portions of the relics to different Buddhist institutions around Asia. At the same time, what were deemed gems and not relics that had been separated out by the colonials were kept and by the government, and they were transferred to the Colonial Museum in Calcutta. A portion of those were then granted back to the owners of the estate where the stupa sat, so the Pepe family, and that portion was kept within the Pepe family for generations. And it's those gems, which were found mixed in with bones and ash, that are now being offered for sale at Sotheby's.
Yes, now the Pepe family argues that these jewels are duplicates, but India says this is misleading. So do you believe these are duplicates, or is this just a case of semantics?
So this is a case of semantics that was in use during the colonial period in many different situations. So no, they're not duplicates. These are a set of gems, if you will, that were mixed in with bones and ash, and that could be, from a Buddhist point of view and from a historical point of view, they could either have been understood as the relics of the Buddha himself. That is, when an exceptionally powerful spiritual master's body is cremated, it is understood that the cremation fire produces doesn't just reduce that body to bones and ash, but also reduces it to these sort of essentially pure crystal-like things. So they could have been conceived in that way. They could have also been offerings that were made to the relics in order to ensure merit in perpetuity, effectively assimilating with the bones and ash over time. So they were not duplicates. They were all of a set. They were all mixed together, and they were all meant to be there together. In perpetuity. They're effectively grave goods, and for any community, whether Buddhist or not, they would be considered grave goods. For Buddhists, they are considered to be highly sacred for their intimate association with the Buddha's body.
Yes, very understandable, of course. Now, so India, in this case, says this auction at Sotheby's contravenes international laws as well as UN conventions. Does India have a solid case to argue here?
So I think that the Indian intervention comes in the wake of and as part of a movement to consider the status of highly important cultural heritage. And it's questioning, who do these belong to? Is it ethical to trade them? And I think that the case of the Buddha relics, the case of the Piprawa relics, really brings these questions to the fore. It really says these are objects that are of deep meaning to particular communities. Can they be traded as commodities on the open market? So it seems to me that the one very strong basis for arguing the stop of this sale is the ethical one, and that seems to be one that the Indian government is really putting forward in a very strong way.
And so, I mean, there's the sacredness of these relics. We've just seen pictures of them, quite beautiful, actually. This goes into the ethical debate about whether they should be returned originally to where they came from, to the state of Uttar Pradesh in India. Where do researchers like yourself sit on this?
Well, I think that in the first instance, these are belongings of Buddhist communities. They are also belongings of humanity. Buddhism is a tradition that has contributed to the development of our social world over many centuries, and this is the relics are witness to this. They are objects of veneration for Buddhist communities. They are objects of contemplation for academics like myself. They are objects of contemplation for people around the world. So I think that finding a home, it is certainly achievable to find a home where they are made available for veneration, they are made available for contemplation. This home could be India. This home could be India enabling a further distribution of the relics to other Buddhist communities. This seems to me to be a very important point that no doubt the Indian government and Buddhist communities will be considering together in the future.
Yes, and of course this begs the question, should relics like these be sold off in an auction by Sotheby's in this instant, because it's supposed to happen tomorrow? And do you think Sotheby's might respond and say, maybe let's hold off for now?
I can't speak to Sotheby's actions. I mean, I do understand, and this is largely from the reporting on the Indian government intervention, that Sotheby's is seriously considering their position on this. I think that the voices of Buddhist leaders that have been heard over the past couple of weeks, and now the voice of the Indian government, makes a very strong representation as to the ethical transgressions that this kind of conversion of the relics into commodities represent.
Okay, Professor Ashley Thompson, really good to get your expertise and your thoughts on this. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Krish.